Hey, 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 everyone, it's Isaya. Welcome, welcome. This is another episode of Isaya's Evenings, Inspiring Evenings, the podcast. So today we are in one of my favorite series of the whole podcast. It's called The Broom, The Brush, and the Beyond. And it's conversations with a guest about the intersection of art, spirituality. We are mostly centering around the iterations of spirituality that are connected to nature, mysticism, galactic origins, ancient traditions, paganism, forgotten rituals, mythology, and the like. As for most of my episodes, if not all, these conversations happen live and are there then shared in my podcast and anywhere else the guest feels like sharing. And today I have an extraordinary guest. I have Alaura O'Dell. Hi, Alaura.
Hi. Good morning from
So,
California.
yeah, good evening from France. So I'm gonna read your bio because there's way too much for me to remember. You seem to, not you seem, I know that you have had quite the life. So, Alaura O'Dell is an interdisciplinary artist. She's a writer, a sculptor, a musician, a performance artist, as well as a sacred writing coach and workshop facilitator. Her career began in 1981. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we're not talking, we're talking the OG here. She has collaborated with the visionary Dr. Timothy Leary, or Timothy, you say Timothy here, sorry, excuse my English. Kathy Acker and DJ producer Cheb I Sabbah. Her solo album, Sacred Dreams, was recorded with electronic artist Justin Beck. She played in PTV, a band which toured Europe, Japan, North America, Mexico, and Iceland. They were featured on TV across Europe and several music festivals, opening, for instance, for Siouxsie and the Banshees and collaborating with the acclaimed musician and composer Björk. PTV was also featured in the Guinness Book of Records for releasing 14 albums in 18 months. OMG. How did you do this? I will talk about that in a minute. Um, Laura then put her music career, on hold for decades to focus on her other passion because that's it. She has more than one passion. I love that I'm talking to people or women who are definitely multi-passionate. So her other passion is sacred sites and women's mythology. And for 10 years, she ran Sacred Journeys for Women, taking women to sacred sites around the world. After taking a sabbatical from taking tours, she fulfilled a lifelong dream, obtaining her BA and MFA in creative writing and consciousness. And she currently facilitates sacred writing circles for cis and trans women, supporting them to find their deepest authentic voice. And again, Alora, welcome, welcome. I'm so excited.
Oh, thank you
It,
so much
I have
for
so many questions. So
and
many
I'll
questions.
and I'll see if I can answer them. Yeah, no, I'm really happy. I'm really happy to be here and honored.
So you were a musician. You are a musician because one never stops being a musician, right?
Yeah.
But you're actually still performing.
Yeah, well, I took this long sabbatical, as it says in my bio, because I really my lifelong dream was to get my degree. And
Mm.
I married young at 18, and I had two children by the time I was 22. And my former husband had been in the music industry, and I had been playing with a local band. I do percussion, soundscapes, DJing, some vocals. I'm not really a singer, so I'll do more spoken word. So anyway, my former husband invited me to join the band that he had just started, that was the band that we traveled all around the world and were in the Guinness Book of Records. And then when our marriage dissolved and I left him, basically he kicked me out of the band, which was, I can laugh about it now,
Yeah,
but it was
mm,
actually extremely traumatic because
of course.
overnight I lost my family unit, even though I didn't
Yeah,
want to be with
mm,
him, and my career.
yeah,
That's all I had
yeah.
done, as a career since I had left school, pretty much. Um, so I took this time to I go on sabbatical and, like re-envision my life through, I think looking back through a depression, it's like,
Mm,
oh, like everything's been stripped away from me. Um, then I went back to England for a visit, met with a very dear high school friend, and she was living in the north of England, and she's like, "Well, you're here for a couple of days. What do you want to do?" And I said, "Well, do you know of any sacred sites, any stone circles near?" And she said, "Oh, yes, another student at college told me about this place. Anyway, we get on the road. It's winter. We've got an OS map. You're familiar with them.
mm.
These ordnance survey maps that, you can read them, but sometimes it's like, oh my goodness, I've got to
Yeah,
climb.
this is not Google Maps for just for you. This is, needs
Yeah,
more concentration.
exactly. Like you open it up and it's like a mile long, the maps in the car. So we leave and it starts to snow. So by the time we find where we think we're meant to be, it's full on snowing.
Wow.
And and then we have to, ask a couple of locals and we finally get directed. And we literally have to trudge through like 3 feet of snow. And we finally got there to the Nine Ladies up in Derbyshire. And my friend, I remember asking me, so what are you going to do with your life now? And I said, "Oh, I don't know." And she goes, "What are you passionate about?" And I was like, "Well, I like really good sex, but I don't want to get paid for it." And I was
Yeah,
like,
that would make sense.
and then I was like,
That's a
I
career
like,
for you,
well,
but no.
yeah, not for me, not. And then I was like, I love to sleep and rest, and no one's going to pay me for that. But what I'm really passionate about is Neolithic sites. And then she said, "Well, why don't you do that? Like, why don't you bring women over to Britain and, because everyone knows about Stonehenge.
Of course.
And Stonehenge is really pretty much like the last of the big, a big stone circle. And the more research I do, it was sort of more of a like, hey, we can build this circle bigger than your circle kind of thing. You know? And there are, like 1,000 standing stones between England and Scotland, and then you have Wales. And I said to my friend, would people be really interested in doing this? And she said, "Oh yeah, especially Americans." So, so I went
Which is
back.
true, isn't it?
Yeah, because I think a
Especially
lot of
American.
yeah, because many Americans have European roots. So
Of
there's that
course.
whole thing of
Of course.
connecting, yeah, to the ancestors, to the land. And it was a way for me to get back to Britain every year. So
Hmm.
my family is English and Irish that I knew of, but in my DNA test, which makes sense, I'm English, Irish, Scottish, Welsh, and a
Hmm.
Iberian and something else. Um, but we're, as you know, Isaiah, we're just, if you're British, you really are a mutt because everyone invaded Britain. Even the Celts invaded Britain. So anyway, I took a break from music, although I did record this solo album, which was initiated by I had to renew my work visa in the States, and a record company said, "Well, we can help you if you do an album for us." But I
Oh,
really
awesome.
wanted Yeah, I really wanted a break from the music industry that was so male dominated
Hmm.
and so patriarchal and sexist and blah blah blah.
I'm going
And
to interrupt because I just realized that I did not tell the lovely listeners the title of this episode, which will make sense right now. So, the title of this episode is From the Wild Days and Nights of Rock and Roll to the Passion of Writing and Sacred Stones. So, since we are in the shift, I'm going to just, I thought, okay, let's put the title in there.
brilliant, brilliant. Yeah. Yeah, so
Yeah,
right.
I,
So then
I don't know much about the music industry, but indeed it does not feel like a very feminine, divine energy industry.
n no, no. And so I haven't missed the business side of it at all. I mean, I've missed definitely being creative, and there's that excitement for being on the road and meeting interesting people. Um, but my passion, comes back to sacred sites, archaeomythology, and goddess mythology, and studying the work of Maria Gimbutas, who wrote many, many books, who was a Lithuanian. I'm sure you know of her,
Yeah,
Isaiah. Her
I
books,
do.
Gods and Goddesses of Europe
Yeah,
was the one
amazing
that
work.
amazing
Yeah.
work. And I was really fortunate to meet her official archivist, Joan Marler. And
Oh,
actually,
cool.
I have the book over there in the realm of the ancestors. So Joan was working on an anthology of Maria's work when I met Joan. So I ended up helping Joan with Maria's archive. So it was pretty amazing to,
Mm,
hold these pieces and be, that were fragile and delicate, to help Joan put this book together. So I get a, acknowledgement in the book. And for me, previously, when I was in Britain and I would go to these sites, I wasn't coming to it through an academic
hmm.
lens.
Yeah.
It was like, wow, these sites feel powerful. What is the history and the her story? What's the her story
Hmm.
that the patriarchy has systematically erased
Yeah.
for a reason? There's a new documentary. I haven't seen it. I've seen the trailer. It's on the Dalai Lama, and a snippet in the trailer, he's basically saying the world will change when all the leaders of the countries are women. And I remember going to see the writer Alice Walker years ago. And in the talk, it came up about patriarchy. And she said, I used to believe that the the US should be run by 12 women, but I changed my mind. And there was this silence of like, oh no, what's she going to say? And she said, it's 13 women. The magic number
Yeah.
that
Hmm.
has become the number where people go, oh, unlucky 13, which we
Hmm.
know is really, it's the magical number. It's,
Yeah.
the number of the women,
Hmm.
it's the number of magic. And so, as I mentioned before we started recording, I'm going back to Britain, flying into London in just over a week. And I'll be having business meetings and then seeing family and friends. But then I come back. The last 3 days will be in Glastonbury, my
Mm.
spiritual home. And yeah, so the music, is there. It's on the sideline. I'm rushing off to rehearse after this chat and talk with you, because I have my first gig in 30 years
Oh.
in San Francisco. Yeah, it's part of an electronic music festival. And I was invited by someone I met briefly a couple of years ago. And um, she said, "Oh, we're doing this festival. Would you like to be part of it?" And I just said, yes. And I hadn't even thought it through, like, what am I going to do? But
I know the
um,
feeling. This feeling when you say yes to something and then 2 seconds after that, it's like, why? Why again did I say yes to that?
it,
Okay, I can do it, but why?
exactly. Well, my close, dearest friend, Inara Griffin, who I think you would love on your podcast. She wrote a book on, oh, one of her books is titled Witches, so she's very connected to paganism. But she was telling me recently a good close friend of hers has cancer, and it's meant to be terminal. But he's running around still. And his philosophy is, when someone says, "Oh, should we do this? Should we go out and do this?" And he's like, "Why not?"
Mm,
And I was like, "Oh, I think I'd like to take on that. Like, why not?"
yeah, yeah,
Someone invites,
that's a good one. Yeah, good
yeah,
philosophy. Why not?
yeah, yeah,
Um,
why not?
unless you have an actual reason to say no, why not?
Yes. Why not? Or you can change your mind. So I'm excited about that, trying not to be nervous. I'm not really nervous about the gig because I'm really good at winging it. And
Mm,
when I create my soundscapes, there is a way where it's like, oh, I'll move the mixer up and it's like, yeah, this sound works. And if it doesn't, you just bring the volume down. It's and
I
I
love
don't
that.
yeah, and I don't use headphones. I don't like other DJs line things up with their headphones. I really know my sources of sound and really do it intuitively. And as you mentioned in my bio, Timothy Leary, I met him through friends that I ended up living with for when I first landed in California. That's a long story. Didn't know I was coming here. I was in Kathmandu, volunteering, feeding people who were basically homeless at Bowdermouth Stupa. And then this whole thing happened in England that we decided not to go back. And we came to California and we stayed with these friends that we hardly knew that we had met Michael in London. Anyway, it turns out they were good friends of Timothy Leary. So they connected with us with Tim, who just said, "Hey, like, what are you doing next week? Come and visit me." Um,
Awesome.
yeah, so I ended up, it was very fun. Tim was very, as you can imagine, very interesting and a lovely man. And I met all these people at his house. A bunch of them turned out to be famous that I didn't even know who they were. Um, I'd come home and there'd be someone playing the drums in the middle of the night, like congos. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to bed. And then I remember the next morning saying to Tim's son, who is that man playing like the bongos? Um, like I was so tired. And he goes, what's he look like? And I was like, kind of middle-aged, longish hair. Um, and he went, oh, that's Harry. And I was like, Harry? Harry who? He goes, Harry Nilsson. And I was like, Harry Nilsson. And he was like a big, friend of the Beatles. And
Mhm.
um, so stuff like that would happen at Tim's. And so we ended up putting on this huge rave in LA, like renting a huge warehouse building with I don't know, like 6, 8 floors. And Tim performed with us doing spoken word. So I would end up doing these soundscape
Wow,
mixes
great.
behind, well, with my band, but then behind Tim. And then I did a couple of other lectures with him. And I think we met in 92 and I think it was 94 that he passed away. But in those 2 years, I spent a lot of time at
Mm,
his house to the point when I my marriage disintegrated. Tim said, if you need any help, I don't have any money that I could help you financially, but you can come and live here at the house with your children, my daughters, which is
wow,
such a lovely offer,
very
but
sweet.
very sweet. But I was like, oh, that it didn't seem very stable with people going in and
Mm.
out the house at all hours of the day and night. So, um, yeah, it's going to be interesting to play again. But in the meantime, I've got other projects going on.
Yeah,
Um,
well, I'm really interested in one particular articulation of your life because,
yeah,
the multi-passionate people, that we do a lot of things. How did you
yeah.
go from I'm touring women, American women, as we said, in the Neolithic sacred sites of the British Isles to I want to be a writer, I want to be a writing coach.
That's such a great question. Well, I started um, my Secret Journeys for Women in 1996, and I
Hmm.
believe the first tour was in 97. And I was taking these tours every year. And then I had always been a writer.
Hmm.
So, I remember like doing little cartoons when I was younger and writing stories. I keep everything, and I've found this exercise school book from when I was 11, and I did this whole project on China and communism and Chairman Mao. And I was probably just hit high school because in England you're
Hmm.
11 when you go to high school. So anyway, I was taking the tours and then 9/11 happened.
Ah.
And then,
Ah.
yeah, and then everyone that year canceled the tour. Everyone, like all the Americans, they were just scared to travel. So I canceled the tour and then tried to keep Sacred Journeys for Women going. And people started to come back. But by 2006, it never had built the momentum to where it had got to.
Mm.
I remember my accountant saying, you could make more money just lying on the beach. And I was like, okay.
Okay.
Um, okay. But I know I was ready for a change and to fulfill this lifelong dream of getting my bachelor's. Um, it's a long story, but with my former husband, I remember saying, hey, the kids are in school, I want to go back to college or go to college. And he was like, he, he was very controlling. No, like there's all this work to do. And I was like, I'll still pick the children up from school. And anyway, it was like no can do, and I wasn't going to get any support. So it was like, nope, this is the time. So I
Do you
had
mind
to
me
spend
asking how old you were?
So when I got my bachelor's,
Yeah.
I was 50. So I
Wow.
spent 4 or 5 years at the community college getting all those prerequisites.
Mm.
And then I transferred into a 1 year program. I did my bachelor's in 1 year in interdisciplinary studies. And people have asked me what that degree was. And I said, honestly, a lot of it and a lot of our classes was about unpacking white privilege. It
And
really
there's a
was.
lot.
And there's a lot. So it was intense on many levels. And then I jumped into the master's because um, I realized I love to write.
Mm.
And I had been facilitating women's circles by this time because I did facilitate women's circles before Sacred Journeys for Women. So it'd been about 30
Hmm.
years. And we had done writing, journaling and other 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 aspects of creative writing in these workshops.
Of course.
So yeah, so I graduated with my masters, had them framed because I'm very proud in
Well,
2016, and I
you're entitled to be proud because, I remember my mom went back to college when she was something like 45, and I remember having conversations with her. I was a teenager by that time, and she was saying I was in college when I was young, and then she studied again, and she said it's not the same, right? That the it takes much more. First of all, life happens when you're 50 or 45. You can't just focus 100%. So yeah, I think it's a great accomplishment. Congratulations.
thank you. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I'm I think I out of 14 cousins, I'm I've got one cousin who has a nursing degree, but I come from a very working class background, and um, my Irish side of the family, work in construction and digging up roads and doing all of that. And so there wasn't an emphasis on
Yeah,
education.
there are like families where you know that the you will be supported.
Yeah,
My family, if you don't go to college, you're like a bit of a weird exception. But other
yeah.
families going to means breaking a mold or a template, a pattern that has been going on for generations, and it's even harder. And then to decide to do that when you're over 40, I'm very, very admiring.
Thank you. Thank you. And I think there is something about going to college when you're an adult because you you're there because you want to be there.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
you're not going to sit there, hopefully, on your smartphone. There was one professor in the community college that wouldn't let you take your laptop into the class because she knew that a bunch of students at the back would just be online doing other things like social media. So I got a lot out of it, and I had amazing professors. And so, at the community college, taking a class in folklore, American folklore, where I learned so much, and um, it was fascinating, and being introduced. I'd known the name, but Alan Lomax and his son, who went round the country and collecting all these old songs. Um,
Actually, I studied Lomax when I was writing my bachelor's degree or my master's degree, because I wrote to TMI, my master's degree on Bob Dylan. So I came to study in the Library of Congress. And I dug through all the origins of American folk music, etc., etc.
oh, fascinating. Oh, wow.
Multi-passionate people, right?
Yes. Well, we have a lot more to talk about. Yeah, I realize, going back to the music, that where I am right now, I listen to many genres of music. I'm not into heavy rock. I'm not into country. There's a couple of country songs, but I'm really, the last few years, really been listening to a lot of British folk music and the stories. And when I was reading this morning for research, so I've been invited to write. There's a British author, Julian Cope, and he's written a couple of tomes
Mhm.
on Neolithic sites. One is this one, and another one, which I have downstairs. So I've been asked to write a piece on his work. And so I'm researching I'm pulling books out of my library. So I'm sure you have Michael Dame's books like Avebury Cycle and Silbury Treasure.
I at some point during my studies, personal studies, because I didn't go back to college, but I did study a lot in the process of unlearning the patriarchy.
Hmm.
I decided
Hmm.
I was going to read more and more books by women,
Hmm.
kind
Hmm.
of almost purposefully. I don't want kind of blocked anything
Yeah.
that would be purely masculine written. for the sake of seeing what it was really interesting. So no, I don't know the gentleman you mentioned, because it was like, no, I'm going to be reading, you know, anything that has been written around women by women.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, I absolutely hear you. And I have a pretty large collection of books on women. What I love about Michael Dames and also Julianne Cope is that they're talking about the mother, a
mm,
Ma, and the goddess, and that the land, that the earth is the mother, and these Neolithic sites were built for the mother.
yeah.
And
Mm,
um, so, so anyway, when I was reading and going back to Michael's book this morning, and he was talking about, you know, Avebury, which
hmm
sort of the largest henge um, sacred site in the world that we know of that's been discovered, and how it was built for a year-long ceremonial practice
mm,
that was really focused on the harvest and regeneration and life, rebirth, and death. And so he mentions John Barleycorn, and there's all these songs around John Barleycorn.
hmm
And so one of the songs that's more recent that I discovered has the lyrics around John Barleycorn, but as you know, in the stories, in the oral tradition and in the songs, that's where we can keep so
yeah.
much of the herstory
Of course, of
alive,
course. In the
alive.
in fairy tales, in songs, in anything that was not proper, anything that was at the hinges and hidden, and or badly translated. That's
Yeah,
another place where you can find a lot of things. So translated into another language, and then weirdly enough, it survived in French and or in
right,
Italian, or being a language buff myself, I speak 5 languages. You can find the same stories
right.
in different songs or in different fairy tales or tales around Europe. And you can see, if you take them all together, you then have her story.
Right,
Separately, they
right,
tell his story. But when you take
right.
them all together and you add kind of reconnect the puzzle pieces, then you can have a her story. It's
Oh,
really fascinating.
I love I love that. I want to delve into your brain. They say that when you speak other languages that it does change your brain. Like I think people's brains become more
I
developed.
can't
But
tell you if that is true, because I've always spoken other languages. I'm bilingual basically from birth, so I speak 2 languages
right,
from a baby. So
right,
I don't know
right.
how other people's brains, monolingual
Well,
people's brain function, but I'm pretty sure that speaking many languages is an asset, but it's not the
yeah,
only one. We can study several things.
yeah. But as you were saying, like if with the stories from around the world or in different languages, they all come back to her.
Yeah,
And this is, again, like studying the work of Maria Gimbutas. I mean, Maria, um, for for people listening who aren't familiar, was a Lithuanian archaeologist. And she didn't start her career or her archaeological digs on, oh, I want to go out there and find evidence of the goddess.
of
That's
course.
not where she was coming from. She was an academic archaeologist, like, what are we going to find here? But what she was finding was more and more evidence of these matrilineal or matrifocal cultures. So, you asked me earlier about, writing and being a writing coach. So, I'll circle back to that, which is one of the workshops I teach is telling the stories that you were always told to keep secret.
Oh, I love
And I
that.
think, yeah, and I think for so many women, we have these stories that we haven't shared,
Mm,
especially, if there's trauma and abuse and shame comes out of that. So what I know that I'm good at doing, even though, I say I'm a writing coach, and I can help people write in a way that we show the story as opposed to telling the story. So
hmm
when you read someone's writing, you can be in the scene. Um, but what I'm really good at doing is holding a sacred space for people to feel safe
mm,
to write and then share their stories. So I I have three don't even like to use the word rule, but three guidelines for in a
mm.
workshop with me. So one is no judgment. So you will stay out of judgment for another person and their writing. We don't
Can
criticize,
can can we also stay out of judgment with ourselves? Because I mean, I'm usually my worst critic.
Well, exactly. That's one of the guidelines. I say that we don't do the words on the tip of my tongue, but any excuses before we share our writing. We
Hmm
don't go, oh my gosh, like Donna's a much better writer than me, and I'm not very good, or this is my. So if a disclaimer. So when you write with me in person, we have a pot on the table that you have to put $1 in every time you do a disclaimer and you put yourself down.
I love that.
And that's our cookie jar.
Hmm
And then the other one is, of course, confidentiality. So whatever you hear in the room, in person or in the Zoom room, even if you feel like, oh, if I tell this story about this woman, but she's in France, so you'll never meet her, I'll change her name. We don't even do that. I just encourage people, if you've heard someone's story and you want to speak to that person, just send them a private message in Zoom or in the workshop, like, hey, can we have a conversation? Like, something in your writing really stirred up something for me, or I would love to share this with you. So, yeah, working around those guidelines and really see that, of course, what you just mentioned, I think is so common, and I think so common for women in that um, putting ourselves down. And I read
Yeah, we
once
have
of,
been brainwashed to basically consider that we're worthless, let
yeah,
alone as artists or creators or writers or being partly French. It makes me laugh that most of the Michelin starred cooks are men. It's like when it's about cooking for the family, it's always women. But when it's about getting stars, oh, now the serious people, the people who are the artists of cooking, are men, right? And I'm like, ah, I think
I
there's
know,
two women who have got 4 stars in the Michelin, which is like, sorry,
it's,
what?
I know, it's such a good point.
So
Such a
we,
good
as,
point.
and I think, I mean, as writers, I was telling you earlier that at some point in my life, for a moment, I've changed my mind now, but for a while, I literally decided I'm going to only read women, including
Mhm.
fiction, right? I'm just
Right.
gonna. There's not much, let me tell you. You know, I am an avid reader. My father was a publisher. I was a bookshop keeper. I really love books, and of course, in the last 20 years, there's a lot more female writers, and that's incredible. But before that, oh my God, oh my goddess, by the way, there's not that many. And I think that, that's part of why I do the Women Lighting the Way Summit, to which you are a participant, by the way. So if any of you is listening before December 12th, 2025, go and listen to Laura's story in the summit, or you will find it everywhere and all the summit stories as well. And one of my missions is to help women, how can I say that, distribute their stories so that they can be heard. But before they can be heard, they need to be written. And that's what you seem to be doing. So we kind of have a conjoint mission here.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. No, I'm such a proponent of women and women's writing. And I have been pretty much on the same page as you of, I love to read. I mainly read women's authors, female authors. With academic work, um, it's it's difficult, like you said,
Hmm.
so much has been published by men, and that's why academically it was so wonderful that Marie Gimbutas came along.
Hmm.
Um, so as I mentioned, if I'm going to read men, it's like, oh, they have to be, promoting the goddess if it's academic work and
Hmm.
goddess figurines, etc., etc. But yeah, I love what I do. I love my work. I love working with women, which includes trans women.
Hmm.
I'm not exclusive. Um,
Do you also work with men? Just so you know.
I have decided to work with women because what I found
Okay.
is that women, my experience feels safer to
Yeah,
drop down and share in a group of women. So
I
it's
agree.
really what I decided to do. I thought maybe in the future, I have actually taught men a couple of times when I was invited by a London arts collective
Hmm.
to teach a couple of workshops, and those were mixed groups. And that was lovely, actually. But for what
Yeah,
I
no,
do,
I'm not saying that men's stories are not interesting or, but
yeah, yeah,
I agree with you that, having been working with women for years now, I can see how the instant a man enters that room, the energy shifts. That this feeling of safety is not as big as it is when there is no man.
exactly.
And I'm pretty sure that when asked to delve deep into their stories, women would feel safer with no masculine presence at that particular moment.
Exactly, exactly. So, yeah, so I love what I do. I mentioned before we started recording that I'm heading to London and I'm going to meet with two different publishers who are interested in talking with me about my memoir. So a memoir, as we come to know it, is often not always the rules of writing are shifting all the time, but um, usually encapsulates just like 10 years, like a slice of your life.
Hmm.
So I was actually writing a memoir on my childhood and growing up with a parent that was incarcerated and what that robbed from me. Um, and then as I was going through my master's program, and I had two wonderful professors, Randall Baptist and Carolyn Cook, who are actually a couple, but they are not but they are incredible professors. And I think it was mentioned to me of like, yeah, this memoir you're working on is wonderful, but I think to get published, writing about, the music industry and your time, but your personal story. So anyway, I've got these publishers that are interested in meeting with me. Um, it's and so I teach a workshop which is write your unique story, write your
Mm.
unique memoir.
I
And
want
the
to because we're coming close to
yes,
the end of this already,
yeah,
time flies. I want to
yeah,
go and ask you one final question around this writing thing, because it feels to me, okay, random idea maybe, that you've gone from this very lively, energetic life of a musician on the road to then this traveling guide for women, and now to this writer and writing coach, which seems like a journey inwards. Is it also a journey towards peace? Because it feels like, towards stillness, or something of the sort.
It's such a great question. This morning I wake up and I do a quiet meditation for maybe 10, 20 minutes if I can get through that 20 minutes. And then I get up and make my breakfast, and then I take my bath and I listen to a guided meditation. And in the guided meditation today, he said, imagine, picture someone, or it could be an animal, but that someone you know or you don't know that is peaceful, that has that image of peace. And I was thinking about, he even mentioned it could be your cat, and I was thinking, oh, how peaceful my cat looks all the time. Um, But I think you've hit upon something that, that's where I am at this stage in my life. So it's like I'm in the last stage of my life, let's say the last quarter. I'm 62, coming on 63. And I am realizing a former therapist said to me a few years ago, Alaura, you do really well as an extrovert for an introvert. And I went,
Hmm.
I'm an introvert? Because here I am, when we played festivals, I think the largest audience was 30,000 people.
Yeah. Wow.
I know it's a lot. But a friend said, they'll invite me to concerts. And I'm like, oh no, that's crowd, that audience is too big. They're like, how are you in the music industry? And then someone said, oh, but you were on the stage. So you weren't,
Mm.
you were.
Mhm.
And so I'm realizing I am such an introvert. Like a couple of days ago, I just didn't leave the house, and there were errands to do, and I like to take my dog on a long walk. And then I got caught up in things I had to do, but then it was like, I'm checking with my energy. I can't be in the world right now.
Mm.
So in that way, writing, and also right now I'm only teaching online. I
Mhm.
plan to teach in person again from next year. Um, but it's really suiting me. And I was listening to an interview with a musician on the BBC who's talks about being on the spectrum and having ADHD. And they said, how do you deal with live performances? And she said, on the stage, I'm fine.
Mm.
But, afterwards, like talking to people, that's challenging, but I know it's part of what I have to do. So I'm already thinking, oh, after I played this gig, people are probably going to want to talk to me. And I'm like, oh, I don't know if there's a backstage, but I can do it, but
Mm.
I'll come home
Mm.
the next day because I'm staying in the city, and I'll probably have to have 2 or 3 days by
Mm.
myself to recharge.
Mm. I was also thinking about the power that there is when we unravel our story and we write it or bits of it, and how we get to peace with our story, basically. And that allows, I think, for less noise. Oh, you're frozen. I hope it's you and not me. Um,
Um,
oh, there
you
you are.
just,
You're back again.
yeah. And now you froze, but I could hear
Oh,
you.
well. There
Yeah.
is a huge windstorm going on outside my house. So this is an
Ah,
audio thing, thank goodness,
yeah. Yeah.
mostly.
Yeah.
But yeah, the idea that when I have made peace with my story, I can be with myself with more joy, ease, and peace again. Um,
Yeah.
and I don't
Yeah.
need the noise and fury and other people and, distraction all the time.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I know. I hear you. People, invite me out. There's a concert on Friday that musicians look great, but it starts at 8. And I'm thinking, I'm going to bed at 8, but just
I
things
know the
that,
feeling. I know the
yeah,
feeling. I live in
yeah.
the absolute middle of nowhere, and to go anywhere means driving for at least half an hour. And
Uh,
it's winter here, and it's like, yeah, there's a concert tomorrow night, starts at 9 p.m. Am I going to drive? It's cold, and oh
yeah,
gosh, no, I listen to music in my on my iPod, basically. So it's like, yeah, I know.
yeah,
But it's interesting. It's interesting the evolution that we go through. Me, because I'm obsessed with this, with the menstrual cycle, reflecting in women's lives as a bigger image. So we're kind of at my age, similar to yours. I'm 58. We're going towards the crone age. So right, and so yeah, we are going inwards. Listen, it's been amazing talking to you, but I know that you have to rehearse. And for anyone listening to us, I believe we're going to have another conversation because this is not finished. So if you want to contact Alaura, you will have all her details below the audio or video. Wherever you watch this, I make sure to put her links. Uh, do contact her. She does teach online. Now is the time, even if you're far away like I am. And remember again that she is one of the amazing women lighting the way in the summit in December 2025. Now, if you're listening to this in the future, even more go and check her links and website, because she did mention that she was going to start teaching offline again. So thank you so much for
thank,
coming to talk to me
thank you.
and taking me on this journey from rock and roll stage to sacred stones and to inward writing memoir journeys. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I've really enjoyed our talk, and I feel like I could talk to you all day, and I think we have
Yeah, I know.
yeah, so
But
many
you've got
things.
to go and I've got to go as well.
Yeah, so many things
So,
in common. All right.
yeah.
I will
Thank
be in
you
touch.
to our
Thank
listeners
you.
as well. And as per usual, I don't have a clue what the next episode is. So just wait and see. Bye for now. Lots of
Bye.
love.